coming to the Philippines, I'm actually based out of Singapore for 8 years now, but coming to the Philippines, I had a couple of meetings with presidents of local companies. And what they have actually shared me is, how do I penetrate the Asian market? How do I become regionally or globally competitive? So there are more and more local companies in the Philippines who's actually looking to go beyond the Philippines. And I think that's actually a way of keeping ourselves aligned with what's happening around us. I would like to particularly focus on the third bullet, increasing business productivity, such as upskilling the labor force, improving leadership, and creating a larger pool of talents through education and training. Why I need to focus on this is because people, as I've mentioned earlier, is important. We are important in this industry. We are important in supply chain. And I think our role is to make sure that everyone in our team, in our department, if you're a manager, if you're a senior manager, or if you're a director or general manager down the line, you have to make sure that everyone in your team is equipped with the right knowledge and competency that is needed to execute the job. We will talk about that at length as well later on. All right, how do we address all this? Think smarter and act with a purpose. Create and develop a globalized leadership. Close collaboration. Several times this was mentioned in some of the presentations that we had since yesterday. Now, that's actually the first part, just more of an introduction. This is what I'm actually very interested in discussing about. On our market employment report, 36% of the employers, and these are CEOs, C-level respondents globally, noted that there are talent shortage in 2014. And that is the highest in the past 7 years. Now, if you talk about what are the impact of talent shortage. Firstly, why are we in this business? I think Kaim has asked this earlier. Why are we in this business? And that's to make money. And how do we do that? We need to serve our customers and our clients. And if we have talent shortage in our department or in our business, then that will reduce the ability to serve clients. So that has actually scored the highest in terms of the impact of talent shortage, followed by reduced competitiveness and productivity. Of course, increased employee turnover. Now, if you look at the last part, which is the lowest employee engagement morale, at the end of the day, if there's nobody else in your team and you're the only one doing the job in your department, what would happen to you, right? Now, higher compensation cost makes sense because if everybody else has left my department and I'm the only one, I can talk to my superior and my boss and say, give me a pay rise, because he'd be afraid to lose you again. Now, today's logistics leadership challenge is very, very simple. We need to be able to adapt to the changing environment. We need to manage our customers' value proposition, strategies, and cost. And what's really important about this, which is mentioned in this slide, is people. Everybody else actually in this room is talking about people and how do we actually develop that. All right. Excuses, excuses, excuses. I've heard this several times. I've been in HR for about 14 years now. 7 years in the Philippines with St. Luke's Medical Center, and the past 7 years, 8 years in Singapore as well. And it's the same excuse that managers, hiring managers, or companies tell me, and that's we don't have enough workforce. Supply chain and logistics is not a sexy industry. All of this, you've heard about this. Gen Y don't want to work for us, they're different. What does that even mean? I think excuses should have happened long time ago. We need to be able to act. I'm not here to actually give you the solution, but probably to give you an idea on how to resolve this. There is no silver bullet that can fix the problem. I have noted 5, probably just an idea on how to resolve this. Firstly, define company culture, employer brand, and identity. This morning, Charlie showed us a video of the LBC addressing or helping out in the Yolanda victims. Wouldn't you want to work for an organization where it, gives that certain kind of brand or value? Keep training and development fluid. The difficulty about training and development is that you feel like there's a beginning and there's an end to it. It has to be fluid. The training that you're getting right now is not the same training that you may need in the future. So it has to be fluid. It doesn't have to end. Now, the reality is, if top management will tell you we need to cut down on cost, the first that is to be affected would be the training and development. Do you agree? Right? But in reality, it's actually a way of investing on your talent. It's really important that you give priority to your talent and how to actually upskill them. Build an agile human resource architecture. Now, again, I came from human resources some years ago, and I think it's important that human resources should be at the forefront, part of the planning process, strategic planning, as opposed to taking a backseat. Increase workplace diversity and talent pipelines. 2 weeks ago, I was actually in Malaysia on a logistics and supply chain conference as well, and we talked lengthily about diversity in the workplace. Now, who among this room believes that there should be, an equal opportunity given to, lights are very high, given to employees coming to an organization. Say for instance, returning moms, all right? We have a very rich talent pool of moms who quit their job because of family and who would want to go back again. Does our company provide that enough room to accept returning moms into the organization? Do we have programs in place in our organization where we can do that? Or perhaps aging employees. What do we do because the thing is, we have a wealth of knowledge sitting in our organization for aging employees. What are we doing about them? When they reach a certain age, do we offer them the early retirement package, and that's it? I have it's a very large multinational company, a customer of ours. So they have a program in their organization where those who are nearing retirement or have retired already, they keep them as consultants in their organization. All right? So that the transition or the transfer of knowledge remains in their business. Because if I'm a smart competitor, I would have just hired that person as a consultant and feed me, especially for those who are like really large multinational organization. So that's one example of making sure that we still keep a place for our aged or senior employees in the organization. I could go on and on about the diversity, because that's a subject matter that I'm really passionate about, especially in our industry, logistics and supply chain. I can see now that there is more or less quite an equal mix of women and men in supply chain, but in our travel across Asia Pacific, if you go to Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, and even in Singapore as well, you can see a very large disparity between gender, particularly in our industry. So I think what really would help address our talent shortage is to open our doors to a diverse set of employees or applicants. And lastly, I think we need to develop leadership. If you look around you, there was a speaker yesterday who asked, who are the millennials or Gen Y here, which means anyone under the age of 30. I think I saw one or two raise their hands as you know, millennials or Gen Y. But, so that means that most of us, including myself, are pretty much on that, you know, journey towards, well, not even retirement, but, you know, towards that journey of becoming, you know, senior in your role. The question is, have we actually identified someone within our, you know, within our team who can potentially take over our role in the future? Have we done that? I can see some nods on the crowd. Yeah, and my boss as well. So yeah, so it's about making sure that we have enough pipeline for our leaders in the organization, and we need to be able to do it as early as possible. We need to be able to engage our young talent. All right, so just to summarize, how to address talent shortage? Firstly, we have covered that evidence. There's a fact that says talent shortage is a problem, is a common problem, particularly for CEO. Apart from managing P&L, finances, etc., talent is the number one concern of the CEO. They can't actually, most of them, there was a survey conducted to CEO as well, like what keeps you awake at night, and that's talent. I have to make sure that I have a manager when I come to office and he's there to show up. And there are ways of addressing this, as what is presented in this slide. All right, so I kept mentioning about pipeline for leadership. I think what we need in our organization, particularly in my business in Singapore, is to make sure that I would be able to identify who's gonna take over my role. And it's not the fear of, you know, at some point I will lose my job and they give it to the next, you know, younger and perhaps slightly cost-effective manager, right? But it's not that. We need to be able to create an environment where we identify a potential leader who can also nurture the younger ones. So if they were actually part of a department or of a team where there's a lot of nurturing, mentoring and coaching within the organization. So I think what's really important is that we need leaders in our business, in our industry, and we need to be able to make sure that we have a healthy pipeline of that. And at the same time, the person that we have identified as a potential future leader should also have the ability and the willingness to nurture and to coach the person down the line. So it's more of like really building up the pipeline for that. Actively encourage future leaders. Building a global champion, extending their function. As managers or as leaders in our organization, we should be able to encourage our young talents to go beyond what they can do, to go outside their comfort zone. You need to be able to encourage them to volunteer on tasks which are beyond their job description or beyond the scope of their responsibility. We have also, well, we have a customer, and I've mentioned the customer's name actually. That's Echo Shoes. So it's a Danish shoemaking company, quite large, and they have pretty much moved into Asia Pacific, and that's because it's closer to the production site and closer to the market as well. I had a chance to speak with the head of their supply chain, global supply chain, who now sits in Singapore. And I was telling him, what are you actually doing in terms of identifying your future leaders? So they have a program in their organization wherein they will identify at least 1 or 2 talents per market. So Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, etc. And these particular talents, they will assign to different projects, finance, sales, marketing, etc., or even supply chain as well, of course. And they will move these trainees around the region. They would have international assignments, say in Europe, in their headquarter office in Denmark, and also in Amsterdam. So it's about allowing them to go beyond what they think they're capable of doing. Even if you think, or even if they think that they cannot do it, allow them to, because you'll be surprised of what they can actually do. I can see a nod on the audience, and I think they could be able to relate to that. I was on a master class 3 weeks ago, Daryl. I think that was about 3-4 weeks ago. So I was sent by our COO to a master class about recruitment and retention. And the former head of Unilever was talking about, again, recruitment and retention. And he mentioned that in my years in the business, Unilever, I think he was there for about 25, 30 years. He mentioned that I'm a senior already, and what I observe about people, their behavior and their personality in the workplace is, even if they say, no, I cannot do it, he would still push them to do it. It's more about pushing them into the cliff. But you have to create an environment where they feel safe and secured. Daryl is smiling because he's actually done this to me. He will allow you to go beyond your comfort zone, beyond your capability and your ability, but he makes sure that you have the safety net that will catch you. And I think that's also important in terms of us as senior managers or directors in our businesses, to make sure that we provide that safety net to our younger or prospective leaders in the organization. You're agreeing, I presume, right? Okay, good. Any violent reaction, just raise your hands and we'll talk. All right. Knowledge. I believe one ways of actually being able to empower our younger generations or our younger talents, prospective leaders, is to provide them with the knowledge that they need. Invest on global training programs. Like what I've said earlier, if let's say you need to cut on cost, budget cost, they normally take out the training and development budget. I think it's really important to understand the value of training programs or higher education and managing your career. Why are we even here, right? Why did our company send us here? And that's to make sure that we are abreast with what's happening around us. This is part and parcel of that training and development. So the very fact that you're here, that your company has spent money to register you and join this particular event, are evidence to show that they are investing. And I think that's really important, that we need to keep that in the organization. I've just been asked to wrap up in 5 minutes. Attracting, recruiting, and retaining individual leadership. This was mentioned by Charlie yesterday, and I believe, and he mentioned this as a points that that needed to be addressed in this conference, and it's really important. It should be part of the agenda of every decision maker or business leaders in the organization. You need to be able to pass on the torch to someone. If you've not trained or invested on someone, I guess you're doomed. Well, not to scare you, but yeah, that's. All right, smart with your compensation and benefits. There you go. So I think this is what you're expecting, or study shows that money, Daryl, cover your ears please on this, right? Money is actually not the ultimate motivator in the workplace in terms of, increasing your salary or promoting. There are other elements. So if you look at the last bullet, non-financial incentives, right? So being able to come here for this event is actually one example of the investment that the company is giving to you. And these are, this is not incentivized. It's not like when you attend here, you get a pay rise. So I studied behavioral science for 4 years, and I'm so frustrated to find out after 4 years that money does not motivate employees. And I think, as I've mentioned earlier, you need to be able to train, identify psychological praises. These are really the important elements in the organization. Okay, right shaping the talent. Again, being able to attract a diverse talent. Population in Asia is about 4 billion in Asia Pacific. 1.5 billion are millennials, meaning to say anyone under the age of 34 below. That's 1.5. Now, if we're not willing to invest on training them and developing them, then we have a really, really serious problem. Okay. So how do we actually do this? How do we actually identify and develop leaders? Make sure that you engage them at a very early stage in their career. You have to understand what takes them. We heard of the word work-life balance. In millennials, or the Generation Y, they don't have that. They have what they call work-life integration, meaning to say their personal and professional life now intersects. Meaning to say, for instance, they can actually respond to email even at nighttime. Whereas in our generation, we normally come to work at 8, we leave at 5, our work ends at 5 onwards. But with the millennials, it goes beyond that. They sometimes check Facebook during daytime, but when you call them up at nighttime, they would pick up your call or response to email. So these are the things that we need to understand about our future supply chain leaders. Get savvy, technological, creative brand energy. Again, I think one classic example is the LBC presentation by Charlie this morning. I think I'm closing to my final slides. All right, so how do we tackle this talent shortage? Again, we are decision makers in the organization at our level, managers, directors. We need to be able to lead diversity, attract younger talents, encourage elders to stay, invest on future stars, blend with international talent, and energize the graduates. This is actually my final slide. Leadership to roadmap. In summary, what we needed in an organization, or rather, in summary, the leadership roadmap that I personally would want to partake to you is this 7 bullets. Diversity management, employer branding, career path management, education and training. We need to be able to come up with specific programs practices about, best practices in recruitment and retention, compensation, incentive, and workforce planning. Okay, I have to quickly wrap that up. I'm getting some advice here. Any questions? I'm open to questions. I'll be here all night, so.
Thank you. So I believe there are a couple of questions for you. So in terms of the Filipino supply chain talent fair compared to the rest of Asia.
Oh.
Any thoughts on that one?
Oh yeah, I do. I do. I was reading an article, and this is a bit outdated because it's about probably 6 months ago, and they have identified the women in supply chain globally. And if you look at the background, and these are coming from Asia Pacific, Europe, and America as well. And I think I can't be wrong because they are really Filipinos, right? You could out of that 50, you could be able to identify easily 5 Filipino women. That's how we compete with the global market. So I think in terms of competitiveness, in terms of that particular aspect, we are more or less fairly competitive in that industry. And it's not just about the technical aspect of Filipinos. I think it's more about the EQ part, our resilience, our flexibility, our team building. I think, and it's part of how we are probably raised in our environment, our sense of resilience. We never give up. In my role, Daryl would always say, he would, I work on a particular project, say an executive search for a very difficult to fill type of role. And I never give up. I never stop searching. And I think that's pretty much a common Filipino trait. So apart from the technical aspect that we bring to the job as a supply chain specialist, we also bring that certain level of EQ. And I think that's how we are competitive in our space.
And in terms of your experience of recruiting talent in the region, what are the biggest challenges, the difficulties in finding good people? And also, in addition to that, in your opinion, again, I presume there are lots of reasons, but what are the most common ones, particularly in Asia, of why good people do leave organisations, particularly in this market?
All right, let me answer the last question first. Why good people quit? And my presentation, I think, pretty much covered that. If you don't look after your people, if you don't invest in their training and development, if you neglect the fact that you don't provide them with feedback about their performance, whether good or bad. These are some, or rather the major reasons for quitting their job. Now, very seldom, even at a senior level, where they quit because of pay or because the competitor has actually, poached them. It's not that. They may say that it's pay, but in reality, it's not. It's actually the environment that this person has actually forced them to resign. Now, very quickly, I do executive search as well. I think 30% of my time is spent on executive search. I work on regional managing director type of role or regional director. I was talking to this, particular senior candidate, and I've been talking to him for 2 years, and it's only in the past probably 9 months that he engaged me in a conversation. That's the amount of time that it took for me to get him across, right? To get him interested in the role. And it's not because I'm doing a pretty bad job. It's because I think the environment that he was 2 years ago and the environment that he has 9 months ago are fairly different. So I think that's one of the reasons why people quitting their role as well. Yes.
And in your experience, the challenges of recruiting good people, where do you see the biggest problems in that sense?
Challenges of recruiting good people. I think it's not about the availability of good people. I think it's about the hiring. I think I put the blame more. Blame is such a very big word, and it's not blame, but it's more of the expectation of employers. Meaning to say, they have. I want this. I want MBA graduate, years of experience. They want 10 out of 10, right? But that's not the reality. You cannot have, blue-eyed, 5'6" in height at least, can speak 5 languages, and has lived in 10 countries. So some employers would come to us and give us that requirement. And I was like, okay. No, but I think it's about collaboration and conversation that we really need to drill down. So it's not about the availability of good people. I think it's about the expectation of employers. And my role, the difficult part of recruiting, is aligning what the market has to offer versus what the employer is looking for. So I think that's, that's the challenging part. And I think one of the most critical part in the role that we do is that we are very heavy on collaboration. So we need to be able to, in a way, educate and talk to our, clients as well on what the market has to offer and your expectations. So, yeah, so don't be worried. I mean, those who believe like, how come I'm not, selected for this role? I went for 10 interviews and I haven't been selected. And I think the problem is more on the employer. They could have spoken to about 1,000 applicants and they wouldn't really find that, because no one in their business would have told them that you're actually looking for a unicorn, and unicorn does not exist. So I think that's what I can share.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Before you leave the stage, if we've got a back with an award as thanks and appreciation for your time on today's session. So,
thank you for sharing. It's very good information.
Thank you, Dino.
Oh,